There's evidence that the president at one point was office mates with Hunter and his brother Jim here in D.C.
It's not accurate.
That is not accurate. So when Hunter Biden is emailing a landlord, please have keys made available for new office mates, Joe Biden, Jill Biden, Jim Biden. You're disputing.
They were not office mates, no.
They were not office mates. Okay.
Welcome back into the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton show, everybody. I got to say, I think that it's going to be fascinating to see how the media handles the growing revelations about the Biden, what is being called Biden Inc. Others are calling the Biden crime family, because you've got Hunter, who obviously, I mean, this is now beyond any doubt, was running around doing the shadiest, most corrupt, influence peddling business deals possible, allegedly not paying taxes on millions of dollars that came in. I shouldn't even say allegedly, he had to pay $1 million in back taxes. So clearly he has not paid all of his taxes. That was clear. Will there be criminal reckoning for it? Clay and I see the likelihood of that slightly differently, but there was certainly criminal activity that occurred. It's just a question of how it is dealt with, how it is handled. Today, the main story on Fox News, Biden Inc., Biden's sister to keep cashing in on brother's career with new memoir following family tradition. The Biden brother, Joe Biden's brother, is also now, and who was doing business deals with Hunter Biden. I mean, the whole family was setting up this web of influence peddling and all these different ways to just take money. I mean, Clay, if I was trying to come up with a farcical, a parody version of influence peddling, having the sitting president's son do finger paintings, basically, and sell them for $50,000 anonymously each. That would be, I used to say this about the Clinton Foundation. I'd say, why not just pay Hillary $1 million for her to, trace her hand on a piece of paper? Because that's basically what they're doing with these speeches. That's exactly what Hunter Biden's doing right now. You almost can't make this stuff up.
Well, and this is a really specific denial. For Joe Biden, who by and large has said, I didn't know anything about Hunter Biden's business interests, to have Jen Psaki specifically saying that the email that they were sharing Office Space, where Hunter is requesting new keys being made, for her to say that's not accurate, they weren't office mates, is a pretty specific level of denial. It's not even Joe Biden denying it. It's Jen Psaki, meaning they had to have a meeting where he said that report's not true, meaning they're now diving into some of these details.
Can I ask you, we didn't talk about this. Special counsel. Isn't this why the special counsel statute exists when you have something like this, where you cannot trust the executive branch to do the due diligence on itself?
I think so, and there's a couple of other things that are standing out here that I'll bring up when we come back in this next segment. There's a front page article, we didn't talk about it, in the Sunday New York Times about the Attorney General Merrick Garland. And also, when you're dodging these kind of taxes, there's a significant fact here. He didn't want people to know that he was getting this money. We're just talking as we went to break, listening to Jen Psaki specifically deny that Hunter Biden and Joe Biden and Jill Biden were office mates, which is a very specific rejection of a story that is out there, which is based on Hunter Biden's own emails he sent. And, Buck, I don't think we've necessarily talked enough about the tax avoidance aspect of this Hunter Biden story, because everybody knows tax day is not too far away, and there are multiple different storylines that are out there about why you could be charged with tax evasion. One way you could be charged with tax evasion, for instance, is if you have a different interpretation than the IRS for what you might end up owing. What I believe Hunter Biden has done is, Buck, they need to have a real investigation here, because I think what's likely to have happened with much of the money that Hunter Biden didn't pay taxes on is he didn't want the IRS to know he had made this money at all. And that's a significant fact here, because it would suggest that Hunter Biden may well have known that some of the money he was getting was improper for him to be receiving. For instance, everybody out there, if you're an employee, you get a tax return at the end of by the end of January, letting you know how much your employer paid in tax, how much you paid in tax. You might get a 1099. There's a variety of different forms that you're going to get. Do we think these Chinese and Ukrainian interests were reporting to the United States IRS the money that they were sending to Hunter Biden? Of course they probably were not, which means that what Hunter Biden was doing was not only avoiding paying taxes, he was hoping the IRS would never know that he got this money in the first place because it might have been illegal, some of the money that he was getting. And I don't think that gets talked about enough. Tax avoidance, there's a variety of different reasons why you could have a tax dispute with the IRS. This is among the most significant.
Oh, absolutely. When you're talking about hiding income, that tends to be the thing that gets the IRS's attention the most, just as we're all heading into tax day. And yes. I despise our tax code. I think the IRS
Amen.
is often the whole thing is just a sham, it feels like. I mean, oh, yeah, we're going to sit down and go through. They can't even tell you. Remember Donald Rumsfeld when he was Secretary of Defense? Actually, for many years, not just when he was Secretary of Defense. He would always include a letter in his taxes saying, look, my accountants and I tried. You want me to sign and say that all this is correct?
Yes.
I have no idea. Like, I'm hoping this is correct, but I'm just letting you know that nobody knows what's correct. The whole thing is absurd. The one thing, though, where they actually do kind of get you and they got you is when you're getting millions of dollars in wire transfers to shell companies or LLCs or whatever, and you hide that. And you do that because, as you said, you don't want people to know about it. Also, you don't want to pay taxes on it. That's the other part of it, right? And that's very, very illegal.
Yes.
So Hunter Biden had to borrow, apparently, from a donor $1 million to pay back. And here's the part of this where they're going to really circle the wagons. Here's where the firewall, Clay, really goes up. It'll be on the issue of any connection. This goes to the office. It goes to everything. Every connection between Hunter and Joe. They're very close. They talk all the time. This is the president's son who's not running a side business. He's not running a hotel business. He's running a, hey, I'll get you access to my dad when it really matters business.
Yes.
So this is where all of a sudden, when you start to pull all the pieces together, this is where you find yourself in a situation where you can say, hold on a minute. This actually implicates, as much as Ann Applebaum may say this isn't an interesting story, this has implications for the sitting president of the United States in ways that all the investigations of Donald Trump and his children never actually did. Nobody was selling. Nobody was taking wire transfers from Chinese Communist Party connected or Chinese Communist Party member businessmen, Clay, so that they could give 10% to the big guy. This is just getting started. I'm telling you, we're not done here by a long shot.
You raised an important question, the idea of an independent counsel investigation into Hunter Biden. Sunday's New York Times, front page story, third paragraph, Buck, because they try to say, oh, Merrick Garland is independent. Third paragraph of the front page New York Times story, which is focused on, the headline is, Garland faces growing pressure as January 6th investigation widens. They're trying to put pressure on him. Third paragraph, Buck. The Attorney General's deliberative approach has come to frustrate Democratic allies of the White House and, at times, President Biden himself. As recently as late last year, Mr. Biden confided to his inner circle he believed former President Trump was a threat to democracy and should be prosecuted, according to two people familiar with the comments. And while the president has never communicated his frustrations directly to Garland, he has said privately he wanted Garland to act less like a ponderous judge and more like a prosecutor who is willing to take decisive action over the events of January 6th. Buck, that paragraph is an amazing paragraph for the New York Times to write, because effectively what they're doing is putting what Joe Biden wants to say to his attorney general directly to his attorney general, who 1 billion% read this article without Joe Biden having to say it himself. I read that and my jaw dropped, because it is the New York Times carrying water for the Biden White House to put pressure on Garland while saying, oh, we've never had conversations with him where we've said that. No, you got the New York Times to write exactly what you think so he would read it without you having to say it yourself.
And here's a reminder that it's a rule, really. Democrats accuse the other side of doing exactly what they themselves either have done, are doing, or will do. They accuse Republicans of what's actually going on within their tent. This happens on countless issues. And Clay, as we're watching this play out right now, let's just remember that Donald Trump having any kind of conversation with, first of all, with his Ukrainian counterpart, Zelensky at the time, remember that? They impeached him over that. Speaking about there was Hunter Biden corruption. Obviously, there were illegal things going on, clearly. So, sorry, there's not some special immunity. Now, you could say that you think that's political hardball and you may or may not want a president to push the buttons in that way. But there's nothing illegal about saying, hey, there's something sketchy going on. You got to tell us what's going on here. Have your prosecutor look into it. That's one part of it. And the other part of it is any conversations that Trump had with anyone within the DOJ sphere having to do with Russia collusion, which was all a lie, all that stuff. They used that. I mean, that was remember the 10 counts of possible obstruction of justice that the Mueller probe came out with? Nothing about Russia, by the way. I mean, in terms of Russia collusion, 10 counts of obstruction. Why is it different for Democrats to say, yeah, Biden thinks that Merrick Garland should probably prosecute the former president?
It's crazy to the degree to which I read that on Sunday, and it just was such the New York Times carrying water. The New York Times carrying water.